Greetings friends, and welcome to the Stat System Gameplay Guide. This is the video that you voted for the most on the most recent tutorial poll. So let's get stuck in, friends. So we're going to be looking at a few classic stats. The first one we're going to look at is strength. And I'm going to show you how to make it so that when you increase your strength, you will increase the damage that your physical or melee attacks deal. So as your strength goes up, so does your physical damage. Next, we're going to be looking at agility, and this is really cool because I'm going to show you quite a few things. First, I'll show you how to increase your agility so as to increase the attack speed. So in other words, the speed of your timelines and the animations, those will be increased as you increase your agility. Next, I'm going to show you how to make your character move faster when you increase your agility. So in the beginning, they'll move kind of slow, and as you increase it, they will actually move faster. Their move speed will be increased. Next, I'm also going to show you how to unlock abilities, which isn't necessarily linked only to agility, but you can use it for any of them. So for example, I show you how to go from just having a single jump to unlocking a double jump. When you reach like level 25 in your agility, for example, you then unlock the ability to do a double jump. Next, we have intelligence. And intelligence is cool, and I'll show you a similar sort of system for increasing damage, but this time you're going to be increasing magic damage, the amount of damage that your spells do, or your AoE abilities, all those sorts of things. Not only that, but I'm going to show you how to improve or make like a super version of an ability. So for example, maybe at first you're shooting fires with one hand, and then you're shooting fire with both hands. So kind of just like a super version. And then I'm going to show you a few other things sort of a bit more briefly. So for example, I'm going to show you how to do Constitution, which increases your max health, and finally Toughness, which will reduce the amount of damage that you take. I'm also going to discuss things like Wisdom and Charisma and how you might approach those things as well. So friends, without further ado, let's get stuck in. Whoop whoop! Alrighty friends, so the first thing I'm going to do is actually get a nice little microchip. So I'm going to go into Gadgets, Logic and Processing and get us a microchip. Now it's important that you have your microchip outside of your actual character. You might say, but bruv, why? That's because you want your stats, in other words, your strength, intelligence, agility, constitution, dexterity, whatever you want, to be separate from your character, because if they die, then those stats will disappear as well, and they could potentially reset. So you're going to actually have the stats separate from their bodies, separate from the actual puppet itself. So I'm going to name this little microchip stats. Okay, sweet. Now we can add in our little puppet. And we can go into gameplay gear and get ourselves a little blank basic puppet. You can use whichever puppet or of course your own characters for this. This chap is just going to stand in for our character in particular. Okay, sweet friends. So now in our stat microchip, we're going to add in and make our first stats. So we're going to go into Logic and Processing, get ourselves a variable. Now this variable I'm going to name strength. And just like this variable, I'm going to make copies of it, make 2 copies, and then we will name them. So we'll have first strength, then we'll have agility, which will determine like the speed of your movement, the speed of your attacks, all those sorts of things. Or if you wanted to have ranged attacks, you could be like, okay, strength increases your melee short range attacks, and then agility increases your ranged attacks and movement, that sort of a thing. And finally we'll have intelligence. So yes, this is very much based on sort of Warcraft 3 styles. You could go full D&D and have just like a million stats, your dexterity, your constitution, all these sorts of things, perception, whatever it might be. But I think I'm going to keep it pretty simple, and once you actually have a general idea about how to use sort of some basic stats, you can really start to get funky, and your inner DM can really come out. Okay, sweet. So we have our main stats, and these are looking cool. But of course our default strength isn't going to be 0, or all these things aren't going to be 0 by default. So you might want to make it something like, let's make it so that let's make it so that the initial value, the first one on top over here, is equal to something like 10. And we can set, let's say we set all of these to 10, and that'll be the basic sort of situation over there. Okay, sweet friends. So what is going to be happening now is I'm going to show you how to actually interact with your particular stat and your abilities. So I'm quickly going to just make a bit of a ability, like a little physical animation where the character does a nice little punch. I'll do that quickly off screen because it's not too important how to do that in terms of the logic. Okay friends, thank you for bearing with me. So I've just made us a little bit of a punch timeline. So in our punch timeline, it's nothing fancy. I've just got my character doing a bit of a punch there, very nice. At the zenith of the punch, I've got a health modifier, and the health modifier is dealing -20, so it deals 20 damage. It's doing it per hit, so it doesn't do it continuously, just per hit. And the modifier type is in the zone. So rather than on impact, which is a little bit janky from time to time, you can make it zone. So it'll deal damage. You can sort of look at this keyframe and be like, okay, cool. If the hand is over here, then I kind of want to, organize the keyframe, or rather organize the damage to be dealt around where this hand is at this particular point. So you can use the keyframe to line that up quite nicely. Now the other logic that's involved here is a counter. So when I press square, the counter is full. It will activate the timeline and it will rewind it to the beginning. So every time it plays, it'll rewind it to the beginning and then it'll start. And then when it finishes, it will be on end trigger. It will reset the count so that we are able to press square again. If we don't have this connection from counter full to restart timeline, it will power the timeline, but it won't play again because it actually needs to restart every time you press it. So now let us see if this works. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I'm pressing square. If I mash the square button, it doesn't sort of, do a little bit of a jittery punch. It'll only do it when the last punch has ended. And now, friends, we can see I've got my little enemy over here. So let's look into the enemy logic that I've added. Once again, nothing too hectic. All I have is a bit of a health manager, but what's important here is that we're going to look at our health manager, and we're going to make it so that cooldown time, in other words, the amount of times you can take damage, so it'll only be able to take damage every 1 second. We'll make that 0 in case we want to, deal continuous damage with a spell or anything like that. Like if you do a fire spell or something, that'll deal continuous damage. And then the other logic that I've got in here is an HP bar logic, which isn't too crazy. Look at Mr. Wooshy's video if you're interested in seeing how that works. And then when it reaches 0 HP, it's going to be destroyed. Okay, cool. So an important part also is in our sculpture, our little enemy dummy over here, we're going to make the label foe. We're also going to go to our little puppet over here, and we're going to make the label friend. Now if we go once again into that timeline, and we look at the health modifier, we'll see that the label for the particular punch, the damage that's being dealt, we want to make it so that it only affects the foe. Because of course you don't want to be hurting yourself when you do a punch. Okay, sweet friends. But now let's go into how to actually make this ability interact with our stats. First we're going to be looking at strength. So I'm going to use strength to make it so that our damage is increased. So if we look by default, I'm going to be doing 20 damage. Whoops. I'm going to be doing 20 damage. So then when I hit this character over here, he is taking 20 damage a pop. And so that would take us 5 hits to take him down, as you can see. But now I want to make it so that he deals more than that damage. As you level up your strength, as your character levels up, you deal more damage, that sort of a thing. So what we're going to need for that is basically just 2 pieces of logic. So we're going to go gadgets. Then we're going to go logic and processing and find ourselves the variable modifier. Then we're going to go into our variable modifier with O1 and square. Name of variable will be strength. Operation type, get. So now we're getting the value of strength. At the moment it's 10. So we've got the value of 10 waiting in here. Now the second piece of logic we're going to need is a calculator. And now this calculation will really depend on your own sort of particular preference and the kind of stats you use, also the scale of the stats, like do you start with 10 strength or do you start with 100, all those sorts of things. But I'm going to make it so that the starting value that we've got, 10, I want it to equal to 1. So for that I'm going to go 10 divided by 10 And this is kind of like our base value. Now I'm going to make it so that strength is connected to A, and B will then divide it by 10. So now the current sort of default, the starting value is 10 divided by 10, which equals 1. So how do I then make my character deal more damage? Well, I'm going to connect the result of this calculator to the health modifier. So I'm going to go to the health modifier, L1 in square, and then by the modification amount, in other words, the amount of damage you deal, you're going to connect it with X. So the calculator, as you can see, is connected to the modification amount. Now what's cool about this, friends, is that as the strength value increases, so will the damage of your particular punch. So at the moment you have 10 strength divided by 10, this is our particular calculation that's going on, we'll make it 1. So it's basically 1 times 20. Now, so let's just have a look to see what 20 damage looks like. Okay, sweet. Hiya, so that's 20 damage. That looks pretty cool. But now the next thing that I want to do is increase the amount of strength I have so that I'm not just dealing 20 damage, but I'm dealing more. So if I make my strength 20, I now have twice as much strength, which means I'm going to do twice as much damage, because now it's 20 divided by 10 equals 2. So it's now going to modify this amount by 2, so it'll be 2 times minus 20, which will equal, of course, minus 40. Now, friends, I'm no maths whiz, I'm no maths genius. There might be easier ways to sort of say this or, point it out. But yes, this is the way that I will be explaining it to you for now, and I hope it's making sense. But yes, so we have 20 strength divided by 10, and we will then have, of course, 2. And it'll be 2 times minus 20 equals minus 40, so let's see what it looks like now. Hachang. So as you can see, that punch deals way more damage, all thanks to the increase in our strength stat. Second on our list now, friends, is agility. And agility is great because you can do a bunch of things with it. The main things that I'm going to show you in this video is how to make your character move faster and also attack faster. So let's do how to make your character attack faster first. So just as before, we've got our agility, and the default is going to be 10. Now, and once again, just with these values, you can make it anything. You could make it 1. I just make it 10 so that the number can be incremented like nicely. So as you level up, let's say you get +2 or you get +3 agility. Whereas if your starting stat is like 1, for example, then maybe adding +1 to that point might be quite a big increase, If you get like +3 to your agility, that means you'd be attacking 3 times as fast or whatever it might be. But I think it's important for you to kind of just use 10 as a bit of a base, or otherwise just use a little bit more funky maths and calculators and so on and so forth. But let's crack on with the actual agility section. So agility over here at the moment is 10. So what I'm going to do is a similar vibe that we've got here. I'm going to go variable modifier, and I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to say, okay, sweet, instead of strength, I'm going to make it agility. And then this calculator, I'm going to copy again, plug this into the A port. I might just move these chaps out a little bit, get a bit of space here so that we aren't too cramped. That's looking cool. And now, so basically what's going to happen is it goes agility, which is currently 10, and it's going to divide that by 10. So this value is going to be equal to 1. So we're going to take the result of this calculator, we're going to go into our timeline, and we're going to connect it to playback speed. So at the moment it's at 100%, which is cool. But okay, sweet. So let's see what happens. Our agility is 10, that's like sort of level 1 agility. And so our attack is hitting at this rate, which is cool. That's the default rate, a little bit slow. And now we want to see if we can actually make it a bit faster. So let's, do the same thing as we did before. Let's make it 20. So now, according to this calculation, it's going to be twice as fast, because of course before it was 10, now it's going to be 20 divided by 10 equals 2, and it's going to say 2 multiplied by whatever this value is. So as you can see, it shows you the maths already. So we've got it at 100%, but when it's multiplied, it goes up to 200%. So now if we give it a try, we can see it's twice as fast, and of course it still works. Take this, you loser. Hiya! Okay, sweet. So we are attacking faster, which is cool, but there's a bit of a limitation here in that if we go to our timeline, 200% is the maximum it can be. So why that's a bit of a problem is if we want our character's agility to increase even more, their attack isn't actually going to be much faster because 200 is the max. I think maybe in a future update it would be cool if the timeline speed could be increased past 200%. But I get that it's, you know, it's also kind of related to music and a certain amount of beats per minute, so I kind of understand why there is a limit. But we can actually work around this, and I'll show you how. So first I'm just going to delete this connection quickly. Then I'm going to go to our timeline, and I'm going to open the playback, I'm going to open the settings, and I'm going to go playback speed, and friends, I'm going to set this to 10%. Now, of course, I've set this to 10%, so that means what's going to happen is our animation will be a lot slower. So why I'm doing this is, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in really close and just move everything a lot closer together. And of course we must line it up as before, so on and so forth. So even now this is still going to be quite slow. So now if we play it, let's give it a bit of a try, give a check. Yeah, so it's still super slow, which is fine. We're going to make it even shorter, even shorter, even shorter. Might still be too slow, so maybe we'll change that percentage. So we can make it smaller and smaller, but at this point we can't actually make it any smaller than that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm actually going to make it, rather than 10%, let's make it something like 25%. Let's see how that looks. So there we have it. It's the sort of timing of it is a bit different, but we can just sort of arrange those keyframes as we desire. And of course, so you see it's a little bit finicky, more finicky. But as you can see now the timeline is 1.46 seconds, which is pretty close to what it originally was. Yeah. 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 Okay, sweet. So you kind of need to move the timeline around a little bit, but now you'll see that the base speed is actually 25%. So now you can increase this by, you know, a whole big amount. So for example, now if we add this here and we connect it to playback speed, now you can see we'll be able to make it way faster, way faster. So now we've got it at sort of double speed. Yeah. So that looks cool. But we can actually make it move even faster. So before, making it twice as fast as the base speed was the max that we could go. But now we can go, for example, if we make this 50, it's going to make it 5 times as fast. So now it's 125%. So now it'll be like shwang. So as you can see now it's way faster. Which is epic. And of course this will be able to go pretty darn high. Like I think it'll be like 80 or 90. My maths once again is not the best. But I think if it's 90, no 80, or maybe even less. Maybe if I go 70, just doing a bit of experimentation. 70, which is 7 times basically. Yeah, okay, of course, I'm being silly. It's 25 times 8 is 200. So there we go. So now we can make it up to 8 times faster than the base speed. Which is pretty cool. So this will be like if your flippin' agility is maxed, which is very cool. And of course this is also assuming that as your agility increases, your speed will increase. Now I'm going to reduce this to something slightly more manageable again. And this time, friends, I'm going to add a variable. I'm going to take these chaps and I'm going to go here. And for this one, I'm going to make it also, this is also a similar vibe, so whatever the agility is, that's looking cool. I'm going to then connect it to our puppet's move speed, or potentially their run speed, or whatever you fancy. So at the moment, it's going to be so now you can see we're going to be moving twice as fast. If you feel, for example, that this increase might be too great, Then what you can do is add just like another calculator in there, and you can say, okay, whatever the value is, divided by 10, and then you can make it like minus 0.5, for example. So now, rather than moving twice as fast, I'll move 1.5 times as fast. And if I had triple speed, I would actually, or if I had sort of triple agility, 30 agility, it would increase it, but not like exactly. So you can use this kind of calculator vibe to just, you can also divide it, you know, whatever it might be, really just so that the increase isn't too ridiculous. But I'll leave that sort of maths up to whatever your preference is. I just want to show you the logic of how it works and where the connections are and so on and so forth. I'll leave the specific mathematics up to all the DMs out there who want to balance their games. Okay, sweet. So now if we connect it, you see it's an increase, but it's not as ridiculous. So let us quickly set this to the base value, which is 10. So now I'm moving around. And now it's actually, the base value is slower than before because, of course, the value is 1, but it's minus that 0.5, so that makes the speed only 50%. Wow, which is actually pretty cool. It has a bit of a realistic vibe to it. I always feel like the default puppet moves too fast. Wow. So now we've got our slow attack. Eesh. So our person is very sluggish indeed. However, if we go ahead and increase their agility by 10, making it 20, then our character is moving loads faster. Wow. Whoa. You might also, actually, you might also want to affect not only these sort of things, but also their acceleration and deceleration. Because as you can see there, it was a little bit, and you know what, you might as well connect it to their freaking turn speed as well. So all these things are sort of important, because if you move super fast but your deceleration stays the same, you'll like sort of let go of the controller and your guy will just keep sprinting off into the distance. So those 5 factors are actually pretty important when it comes to move speed. Those 5 factors are walk speed, run speed. You might, only use one of these or otherwise both. Turn speed, so that you aren't super sluggish and like, running at 100 k's an hour. And then, of course, the acceleration and deceleration. So, sweet friends, there you are. That's how you use agility and strength to affect your timelines and your character movement. And now I want to show you a little something that is going to kind of using your stats to unlock something. We're going to go into intelligence, so don't worry about that. But I just want to show you how to do something. In particular, get a double jump. So let's say in your game, like, okay, by default your character has a single jump, but I want to make it so that when your character like gets, let's say, 25 agility, or when they get 50 agility, they unlock the ability to double jump. So let's figure out how to do that. Whoop whoop. So to have abilities unlock when you reach a certain level in your stats, what we're going to do is grab ourselves a calculator. If you've seen my if statement videos, this will all be super familiar to you. Okay, sweet. So basically, we've got our value here of our agility or strength or intelligence. You could like unlock spells when your intelligence reaches a certain level, and similarly unlock certain attacks when your strength reaches a certain level. So let's say when our agility is greater than, let's say when you get to 25, you'll sort of unlock it. So let's say if it's greater than 24.9, if it is greater than 24.9, then it is going to give us our ability. Of course, not equal to 25, for example, because if it was equal to 25, then as soon as you increase past that level, you wouldn't have the ability anymore. But yeah, so I'm going to make it greater than 24.9. And then I will say, I will get us a little keyframe. And then I will go to our puppet, L1 and square, of course, and I'll just go double jump height and give us a little bit of a double jump there. Okay, sweet. Now I will connect this and I will change the name of this to activate double jump or something like that. Or unlock, let's say unlock double jump. Jump, double jump. Double jump. What a weird word. Anyway, okay, double jump is going to be, and then you can change the color, be like, double jump, it feels orange to me, you know. Okay, sweet. So now we have unlocked double jump. So at the moment, of course, our agility is 20. So if we try it, we're going to be like, yeah, I'm mashing X, but no luck. However, if I now make it something like, if I now make it something like 25 on the nose, it's going to be like, sweet, double jump is unlocked. Hacha. Doo-doo. See you later, loser. Woohoo. Take this. My agi is too high for you, bruv. Get back in line. Okay, sweet. So, and of course, if we increase it past this, we give ourselves a million. Okay. Now, of course, we've still got the double jump, and we're going to move fast. Yeah! Woohoo! Woohoo! This is ridiculous. Okay, sweet. So, that is done. That is how you unlock abilities with your stats. It's very simple. It's just basically like a little if statement. If value is equal to or greater than certain value, then we shall unlock ability. Easy as pie. Now, I'm going to show you some more intelligence-based stuff. So I'm going to create a few spells, and I'm going to show you, it's a similar vibe, but I will show you how we will do this now with an intelligence stat. Whoop whoop. Behold, friends, for I have created a fire spell. So, what is going into this? Well, when we press the R1 button, it's going to connect to a node. Then that node is going to emit some flames. I've just designed some flames here in paint mode. If you want to see how to make some flames, definitely check out my fire bending / fire ability collection, which I made not too long ago. Okay, sweet. So now we have, in terms of the settings on the emitter, we are going to be emitting our little flame over here. We're going to be emitting it at a particular speed. So for example, 5.5, although it can really be anything. A rotation speed, just to give it a little bit of, you know, character. We're going to go time between emits 0.0, so that they are emitting like very fast and almost looking like a continuous stream. And of course, emit mode will be on continuous. In terms of emitted object lifetime, it doesn't actually matter because there's only a certain amount that can be emitted at once. So there's two ways that you can limit it so that it doesn't break your scene. The first way is with emitted object lifetime. So you make it sort of only last for a few seconds or even less than that before it sort of disappears. Or you can just make it so that it has a max emitted at once. So we're actually going to use both of these because we're going to say, okay, the max we can have at once is 20. Because of course, if you make it 0.0 and you have no limit here, then you could create like just tons and tons and potentially, you know, overcrowd your dream with stuff. And it is actually important to give it a bit of a, you know, object lifetime so that when you stop pressing it, you're not just going to have 20 of them floating around. So actually in the beginning when I said that it doesn't matter, it does actually matter. Please excuse me. So two things that you need to just look out for is, of course, the emitted object lifetime and the max emitted at once. Okay, sweet. Now let's look at that flame itself quickly, because as you might have seen, there is a little bit of logic here. So it's just a health modifier. On this health modifier, I've got -5 HP per second, or, you know, -5 HP. Then it's continuous. It's also in a particular zone. What's cool about zones is you can have a zone fall off. So if we go to zone properties, we've got our zone size, which is 1.1 and covers the entire size of the flame. And then I've got a bit of a fall off, which is like the region around it where you'll still take damage, but slightly less. I love the fall off feature. It's just amazing. Then, of course, labels, we're going to make it so that it affects not friend, but only foe. And, you know, maybe machinery or scenery, you know, whichever you prefer. Depending on, like, if you want your flames to be able to, like, burn down a building or, you know, like, destroy an object, you know, that might not be a foe, for example. Okay, sweet. Now, I've connected this node to another node, and you might be like, bruv, why do we have two nodes? Well, we make it so that we have two nodes because I'm going to show you in a second what happens when we have our super fire ability. But basically, we've got our node, then it connects to the second one, and then it goes to our fire pose, where our character gets into a particular pose, which is what they'll be doing when they shoot out some flames. So now if we give it a try, and we go R1 and we shoot out our flames, it's looking cool. It's melting our little character here. Take that, you loser. So that's looking pretty cool. And of course, because we have a because we have a bit of a timer set on it, it's only going to last a few seconds and then it's going to disappear. You know what these look like? These look like those crystal sulfide things in No Man's Sky. Anyway, so now I'm going to show you why I have this node and why I have this super fire. So, of course, let's say that you've got your intelligence stat and it's at 10. And it's like, cool, that's your base intelligence. That's like you can smack 2 rocks together and, you know, that sort of a thing. Now we have, if we have like increased intelligence, let's say like, ooh, if our intelligence is 25, for example, then we unlock super fire. And I want it to be so that when we unlock super fire, we're going to have not just like shooting 1 hand of flame, but we'll shoot 2 hands. So as you can see, this logic is actually identical here. The only difference is that for this one, the first one, the emitter is connected before the second node, so it's connected here. So basically, when you press R1, it's going to shoot fire out of your right hand. But now this one, I'm actually just going to copy it in so we can have them next to each other. Now this one will make it so that when this node is activated, ooh, let's just line this up here nicely. When this node is activated, so when this is pressed, okay, cool. But when this node is activated, it is then going to do our fire pose 2, where we have both of our hands out. And not only that, but it's going to activate the second stream, as it were. So that's looking cool. You could also make it so that, okay, sweet, when I do this, it's like that. So when you've got your level 1 version, it'll do that. And then when you have your level 2 version, it will also be powered by this guy. So you can connect it here or you can connect it before. It really doesn't matter. Either is perfectly fine. Okay, sweet. So at the moment, I have my level, let's say like my normal fire attack. So here we have my normal fire attack. That's looking cool. I'm dealing my damage. The guy is in the flame. He is getting roasted. So there's a few things that I want to now do with intelligence. The first is to make our attack actually more powerful. So how do we make our attack more powerful? Well, of course we know that damage comes from not in our puppet, but actually it is attached to the fire itself. So what we might want to do, friends, is put down a little microchip and attach it to, whoops, our little painting over here. It might be a little bit tricky. Sorry, I haven't designed this super well. Now you can take that health modifier and just plop it in that microchip. I should have actually used a microchip from the beginning, silly me. And that's looking cool. Now we can make it so that we'll go variable modifier. We'll put that in over there. We'll go name a variable intelligence. We're going to set its operation type to get. Then we're going to make it so that it's going to get that value. It's going to, of course, divide it by 10 so that the base value is 1. It's going to divide it by 10. And then it is going to affect the health modifier in terms of the modification amount. So at the moment it's -5 times 1, which of course equals -5. So this is just our base form. Let's check out the base form. So here we are. So we're dealing damage. That's looking cool. Now, if I increase my intelligence, let's increase it by 1. So it's 11. So now it'll be doing 1.1 times damage. In other words, you increase your damage by 10%. You're not really going to be able to see that, but that's just like an example. Just, you know, to work through. And of course, if you increase by 5, you increase the damage by 50%. If you increase the damage by 10, you increase the damage by 100%. Yeah. So now if we do our flames, as you can see, it melts our character, our little enemy, a lot faster. Great damage is dealt over there. So that's looking cool, friends. Cha-cha-chang. So our character has just melted this guy. He's been roasted. RIP in peace. But we actually want to do some other stuff too. It's not enough. It's not actually enough that we just melt our character much faster. I also want to unlock an upgraded version of this ability. So friends, how are we going to do that? Oh, actually, before we do, you can also increase like the size of the area of effect You know, the zone size, for example, you can increase the zone size with your intelligence stat as well. So it's like it deals damage in a larger area of effect. But of course, it doesn't always. It won't increase the size of the painting. So just keep that in mind. The most basic and the most sort of the first thing that comes to mind is increasing the damage, and this is how you do that, just like in the strength sense. But yes, let us now unlock the next upgraded version of the ability. Okay, sweet. So let us unlock our next level ability. So we're going to go just like before. We're going to copy this calculator. We'll connect this to the A port. And it's going to be when our intelligence is greater than 24.9. In other words, when it's 25 or higher, we are going to add in a little keyframe. And the keyframe is going to deactivate this version, which is our level 1 fire pose, you know, or like our level 1 fire spell. And it's going to activate the second one, and the second one is going to put us in our next level pose. It's going to put us in this pose, and it's going to activate both of these emitters, not just one of them. So we'll connect this up here, and we'll say super fire, or unlock super fire. Unlock super fire. Beautiful stuff. And we'll make this like blue, you know what I mean, spells and all that sort of thing. Even though fire is red, but, you know, spells are blue. Anyway. Okay, sweet. So, at the moment, we have our flames. Our character is roasting this dummy. And then, if we increase it to 25, anything higher than 25, we will have double flame power. So that's looking cool. So we have twice the flames. That is very nice indeed. Okay, sweet. So and of course any value higher than what it currently is will make it deal that amount of damage, and it'll be a double flame. So that's looking cool. Okay, sweet friends, so we know how to increase damage, speed, and unlock abilities with strength, agility, and intelligence. But let's think about some other stats, because if you guys are D&D fans, you'll know that there are a few more stats that, you know, sort of determine the things that happen in the game. Or, you know, even RPGs in general. So, another thing that we might look at is Constitution, which generally determines your hit points, your health points. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to copy this, our little stat over here, and I'm going to name this one Constitution. How do you freaking spell Constitution? Yeah, just like that. Sorry, my brain sort of derped it for a second there. Okay, sweet. So there we have our Constitution. And we're going to make it so that as our Constitution increases, our health increases. So I'm going to go Gadgets. And actually, I'll just use what we've got here. So whoops. So we have our variable modifier, and we're going to be looking at Constitution. It's going to be dividing by 10, and then it's going to be equal to our max health. So that looks pretty cool. So if we increase our Constitution, our max health is going to be increased. But there's only one problem here, friends, and that problem is that if we do in fact increase our Constitution, our max health will indeed increase, but will then be at half health. Our health doesn't sort of fill up to that point. And generally when you level up and so on and so forth, your health will refill. So what we can do for that is, we'll go to our Constitution, and we'll make it so that when this is increased at any point, it will reset our health. So for example, if we have something that increases our the value of this, so for example, if this adds 1 to Constitution, for example, it will then reset it. So it added 1 to it, and as it detected it was being increased, it refilled it to max, and then we have 210 HP. So there you are, friends. That's just a little bit of logic there. We'll set it to 20 for now, and so that's how you would do something like Constitution to increase your max HP. You could also do something like, you know, you could add a health modifier on yourself and increase like your health regen, for example. You could just have like a health modifier that surrounds your body and like constantly heals you for like 1 HP, you know, every second or something like that. You could also affect that with your constitution. In the exact same way that we do increasing damage, you can increase healing. Okay, sweet, so that's constitution. Now, if I had to think about wisdom and charisma, which are the other sort of classic D&D stats, really, like in another game, like if you think about it, what wisdom and charisma do is they sort of unlock things for you. So for wisdom, you're able to notice more things, and for charisma, you're able to, you know, interact with people in different ways. So for example, if you didn't have high enough charisma, if you spoke to someone, they'd just be like, "Oh, get out of here," you know, or they'd start fighting you. So you could use charisma like any of these stats, and make it so that, like, if you talk to someone, nothing happens. But if you have 25 charisma, then it will, you know, it will activate like a new interaction that you could have with them. And that would work in the exact same way that we have our unlock superfire. Because what would happen is you would have a node, for example, so this first node would be connected to, like, the person says, "Ah, get out of here." And then if you have high enough constitution, or sorry, if you have high enough charisma or wisdom, whatever it might be, it'll deactivate the first node, which will be the, like, "Ah, get out of here," and activate the second one and be like, "Oh, you make a good point, let's have a conversation," sort of a thing. So that's how I would do it with charisma or, you know, wisdom. I feel like with wisdom, it'll be like, you know, you walk into a cave and nothing happens. But if you have 25 wisdom, it'll be like when you walk into a cave, then, you know, a trigger zone will be activated and it'll be like, "Ooh, you notice, you know, a chicken on the floor, and, you know, this is the sacred chicken," and whatever, you know. When it comes to like perception checks and rolls, I feel like that's slightly out of our scope when it comes to stats. But I feel like in this slightly out of our scope in this particular video, because I don't want it to be 2 days long. But I think these are the main things that we'll look at for now. And so yeah, that's how I would approach wisdom and charisma. Okay, sweet friends. So now the last stat that I can think of that comes to mind is toughness. And we'll be able to do this thanks to the sweet new feature in Dreams, which is the damage multiplier. So basically, we're going to make it so that as our toughness increases, the amount of damage we take decreases. So normally we take 100% damage, but as our toughness increases, it'll get reduced and reduced and reduced. So the way that we would do this is we can go, okay, sweet. So I'm just copying my constitution, and this one I'm going to call toughness. So this isn't like particularly like a D&D sort of stat, but it's just like the kind of stat you could have in maybe another game. And as we said, it will determine the amount of damage you take. So the calculation will work slightly differently. So we're going to go, okay, sweet. We're going to go toughness. Then we are going to choose a calculator. But this calculator is going to work slightly differently. So I'm just going to reset these values. We're going to make it so that the A value is 1 and the B value is 1 divided by our variable. Now, friends, to figure out this, I had to call most of my family members, who are all better at maths than me, to figure this out, because like I've said before, I'm dumb. So basically what happens is, think of toughness as the X value. So as this increases, it will be going 1 divided by 1, which of course equals 1. 1 divided by, and if we make this 2, for example, it'll be 1 divided by 2, so it'll be equal to 2, and so on and so forth. We might actually want to add in an extra step so that the increase isn't too drastic. So what we'll do is, we'll go calculator, and we'll make it so that it's toughness divided by 10, and then that will be 1 divided by whatever this is. So for example, right now toughness is 10, divided by 10 equals 1, and we'll go 1 divided by 1, that will equal 1. So I've said a lot of words now. But if this is 20, this will then be 2. 1 divided by 2 equals half. And if this was 30, 3, and then a third. So as you can see, as the X value increases, the result decreases. So how do we make this work? We're going to connect this to our damage multiplier. So at the moment we can see it deals 100% damage. But now if I make it, for example, 30, he's going to take a lot less damage. So now he's going to take only a third of the damage. Similarly, if I make this 40, whoops. If I make it 40, he's only going to take a quarter of the damage. So as you can see, that's quite crazy. And, you know, as you increase it by smaller amounts, that will also reduce it some more. I mean, increasing it by, what? Didn't I make it initial value Pokemon? Okay, yeah. So that'll increase it, you know, by small amounts. So basically, you can, you know, adjust these calculations as you desire, friends. But basically, when it's at its default value, it will be 100%. And as this increases, the amount of damage that we take is reduced, as you can see there. So that might need some balancing and so on and so forth, friends. But basically all there is to that calculation is you have your calculations as you have before, divided by 10, but then you go 1 divided by whatever the result of that calculation is, and you connect that to the damage multiplier. Okay, sweet friends. So that is how you do something like toughness. Alrighty, friends. So those are all the stats that I can think of. So I've got strength, agility, intelligence, constitution, toughness, and we also discussed wisdom and charisma. If there are any other stats that you can think of, I'm just thinking now, and I can't think of anything in particular, but if there was anything else that you thought of that you'd want me to explain or figure out, definitely drop a comment below, and I shall discuss it with you and anyone else who's in the comments, who's, you know, maybe got a bit of a head for, you know, stats and maths, can of course also jump in. And, you know, I dig the community vibes, friends, you know what I mean? So I feel like if we have some more questions about stats, it would be cool if this became, you know, a bit of like a location where you could talk about it, and, you know, if the comments then gets filled with all sorts of people's insights, and that would be great. So yes, friends, as always, thank you for watching this video. This was quite a bit of a complex one. There was a bunch of stuff going on, but I hope for all of you who want to create like very, you know, profound games, or, you know, games with a lot of depth or a lot of stuff going on in the background, a lot of stat increases, all that sort of stuff, yes, I hope that you found this useful. You might also want to, when you do your particular stats, you might want to make them persist in dreams, friends, so that if, you know, you go from one dream to the next, the values don't reset, because you don't want to, you know, battle it out in one world, go to the next, and you start at the beginning all over again. That would suck. But yes, friends, so that is all there is to it. We now have our stat system. I went over the main 3 stats, and of course a few bonus stats we discussed. But thank you so much for watching this, friends. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions, and I shall catch you on the flip-flop. Peace out! Hey, thanks for watching, friends. I just want to give a massive shout out to my Patreon patrons, or as I like to call them, the Mean Knights. Thank you so much, Tap Giles. Ooh, thanks so much, Tap Sensei. Whoop whoop whoop. And Salt Levels Max, my first patron. Ah, ye. Friends, if you want to support your boy and get access to some bonus content, consider becoming a patron. Thanks for watching, friends. Peace out!